Most monks in the 6th century prayed for the salvation of their souls. These two prayed they wouldn't be executed. They weren't saints. They were the world's first industrial spies, ancient James Bonds in robes. They had one mission: steal the greatest secret of the ancient world right from under the nose of the Chinese emperor. But if they failed, they'd pray for a quick death. In China back then, smugglers faced a ladder of pain. If you were lucky, guards would behead you on the spot. That was mercy. If they wanted to know who you worked for, it was finger breaking with bamboo sticks or tongue removal so you'd never speak again. But stealing sacred silkworms? That wasn't just theft. That was an insult to heaven. For traitors like them, they reserved Ling Shi, death by 1,000 cuts. The executioner started with the limbs, slicing off small pieces of muscle, slowly, surgically precise. The goal wasn't to kill. The goal was to keep the victim conscious as long as possible, sometimes for days, so you'd watch yourself disappear, so you'd serve as a living, screaming monument for anyone who even glanced at the empire's borders. It's the year 552. The Byzantine Empire, superpower of the West, has a massive problem. It's addicted, not to opium or alcohol, but to silk. Romans and Byzantines loved silk so much they paid for it by weight in gold. But they had one problem. They had no idea how it was made. They believed it grew on trees. Roman historian Pliny thought it was combed from leaves in the desert. Reality? China had the monopoly. And between China and Byzantium stood the Persian Empire, the mortal enemy of Emperor Justinian. Persians charged brutal markups and funded wars against Byzantium with the profits. Justinian was literally paying for the weapons, killing his own soldiers. History says trade connected people. Reality? Technology didn't spread through trade. It was guarded by blood. Borders were secured tighter than modern airports. Every caravan searched, every merchant interrogated. Emperor Justinian sat in Constantinople, furious. He needed a plan. The emperor didn't hire mercenaries or assassins. He hired God, or rather his servants. Imperial historian Procopius recorded it directly in his work De Bellis, Book 8. The monks, likely Nestorians, came to the imperial palace themselves. They'd lived for years in the region called Serinda, the gateway to China. Procopius didn't record their names. They were just certain monks, in Greek, tines monachoi. They didn't learn the language and customs for the mission. They lived them. For years, they watched the empire's greatest secret right before their eyes. They saw silk didn't grow on trees. They saw those small, ugly worms. History often paints them as pious explorers. Don't buy it. They were mercenaries in robes. Whether they were driven by religious zeal, seeing China's monopoly as a pagan stranglehold, or just the promise of cold, hard Byzantine gold, they were willing to sell out the very people who had hosted them. They stood before Emperor Justinian with a ruthless proposition. We know the secret. We know where the eggs are hidden, and for the right price, we will steal the East's greatest fortune for you. Justinian didn't hesitate. He sent them back to betray the country that had hosted them. They were perfect insiders. But even living there, smuggling live eggs across borders was nearly impossible. Procopius told us who and why, but another Byzantine historian, Theophanes the Confessor, revealed centuries later how. He exposed the ingenious smuggling device they'd carried the whole time right in their hands, a bamboo pilgrim's walking stick. But this wasn't just a hiding place. It was a biological incubator. The silkworm is extremely delicate. Too hot? The eggs hatch early and larvae starve in the Taklamakan Desert. Too cold? The eggs freeze in the Pamir passes. The monks had to maintain perfect temperature inside the stick. Theophanes says they used manure for insulation. Other sources claim they warmed the sticks with their own body heat during freezing mountain nights. But cold wasn't the only problem. The silkworm is slave to its own biology. It survives only on white mulberry leaves. If a larva hatches and doesn't find that specific tree, it dies. Those trees didn't grow in Byzantium, which meant stealing eggs alone wouldn't be enough. In that same bamboo stick, they had to hide mulberry seeds too. They carried an entire ecosystem. They had to smuggle not just life, but the only food that would sustain it. Imagine the stress, walking for months, holding a stick worth an entire kingdom. Every border guard who glanced at it was a potential executioner. One soldier saying, "Give me that stick, old man," and snapping it. Game over. Head down. They crossed half the known world in silence to keep that delicate cargo alive for 3,000 miles. They watched winter turn to spring and spring to summer, protecting their secret. By the time they finally entered Justinian's palace, 2 full years had passed. 2 years of fear, hiding, and prayers that those cursed worms wouldn't hatch. Standing before the emperor, they cracked open the sticks. Thousands of tiny eggs poured out. China had just lost its monopoly. That moment changed everything. Within decades, Byzantium became the new center of silk production. They broke Persian market control. China's secret was out. Silk prices crashed in Europe while the Byzantine treasury overflowed. Every piece of silk made in Europe for the next 600 years came genetically from those few eggs 2 monks smuggled in a bamboo tube. People think history is written by generals on horseback. But sometimes, history is written by 2 nameless guys with a stick who had the courage to do what others thought impossible. What is today's silk? What secret would be worth risking your life to smuggle? Google's algorithm? Coca-Cola's recipe? Drop your guess in the comments. If you think this was crazy, wait until I tell you how the Mongols used plague as a biological weapon on the same route. But that's next time.